Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Nick Ryder Tips, now sponsored by Coca-Cola. We're going to be continuing our Texas Hold'em series in which we're covering beginner tips, and this one's going to be about etiquette and commonly missed rules and rule violations. So some of these rules and etiquette pieces are not as enforced in a home game, but if you walked into a casino and breached some of these, you might be called out and other players might be mad at you. So we don't want that. So when you first come to a table, and you come and buy in, you'll probably buy in for about 100 times the big blind is a good ballpark range. If you want more information on buy-ins, go look it up. And when you first sit down, you're going to be expected to pay the big blind when you join a game so that nobody's getting it for free. So you can either wait for the button to come around to you or you can just post the big blind out of turn, and that's completely fine. So you get your chips. Let's say we've got, let's say we're, for the sake of numbers, we're in a tournament game or whatever, and we've got red chips are 100, blue chips are 500, orange chips are 1,000. So your orange chips are the biggest chips, and they are expected to be visible to all the players. This is not, you know, part of poker strategy is not hiding your money from everyone else. Everyone is supposed to be able to glance over and see how much you have in front of you. You don't necessarily have to count it, I don't think, unless you're in a hand. The dealer might count it down for you. But anyway, keep your big chips out front. That is expected. Now, here's another situation that happens a lot, is you'll get down pretty low in small chips, especially in tournaments where they give you a lot of big chips and only a couple small chips. So say I've been bet into like 200, 200 here, 300 here, and I've only got two, right? I've only got two red chips to call if I wanted to. So a lot of people will say, can I have change? Can I have change? No, just put out the chip, say call if you want to, but if you put out the chip, without saying anything, it is indicated as a call, which we'll get to in a second. So it's the dealer's job to make change for any chips that are in play. And so he'll give you back the chips and scoop the rest to the middle. Which brings me to my next point. When you are betting, bet out in front of you, like this. So this player would bet here, this player would bet here. In the movies, this is what they do. 500. Okay, well, maybe you saw where those 500 landed, but that's hard to count. So if I went 500 and threw in 4 of them, that would be hard to count. So you don't do that. Every round of betting, you put the chips out in front of you, and then the dealer will bring them all into the middle once everyone is good, like even. Okay? Now, back to that calling thing. This is the most common mistake that people make, is that, so this player will bet out 300, and my intention is I want to make this a $1,000 pot. So I do this. And the dealer goes, you just called. Because this is what's called, it's shorthand for the one chip rule. Whereas if you put in one chip without making a verbal declaration that you want to raise by saying 1,000, it becomes a call. So a lot of people make this mistake. If they're beginners, they don't know about this. So what would happen is the dealer would take it and they'd give you 700 in change. I was at a card room once and the bet was 1,000 to a guy and he had a 10,000 chip and he did this, 10,000. And the dealer said, you just called, because it hit the felt before he said 10,000. And it ended up costing him, he was a noob anyway, everyone could tell, but the guy he was playing against said, well, had you really bet 10,000, I would have folded. So it ended up costing him the hand. Now, he probably shouldn't have been betting that much in that hand, but whatever. If it was a bluff or whatever, it would have worked, but it didn't end up counting. So other than the one chip rule, pretty much everything you do can be done without saying anything. If you want to say something, that's completely fine. So if he puts out 200, I can say call and put out 200, right? I can fold by pushing my cards away. Now, if there's no bet on the table, the motion to make no bet, what's called a check, is to tap the table. So you tap it like this, say check. Now, some people, if they're really cool, they do this, right? They just tap real subtly on their card, something like that, or even over here. That can be hard to see if you're a player, so pay attention, A, but B, because people do this, the dealer is used to looking for it. So if you're sitting here and you're thinking about what to do and you do this, you've probably just checked. So be very careful about the motions you make when you're at the table. Now, when it's your turn to take action, you have one opportunity to take that action. Keep that in mind. You can either call, fold, check, raise, whatever. You have one opportunity to do it, which means your motion to do so has to be in one fluid motion. So if I want to bet 500, I do it all at once. Or I say, bet 500. So if I wanted to bet 500, I couldn't do this. I bet 1, 2, 3. No, you've bet 1. That was your first action. You've got one action. And this carries over into several other aspects, right? So let's say this guy bet 500, right? And I say, make it 700. Now, this is a breach of the minimum raise rule. The minimum raise has to be at least what the previous raise was. So this player raised from 0 to 500. I would need to raise from 500 to 1,000. Now in home games, someone might say, nah, you can't bet 700. You have to bet at least 1,000. And this player might go, oh, okay, never mind, then 500. In a card room, that would not fly. You have raised because you've made it over what the bet was, but you didn't make the minimum, so now you would be forced to make the minimum. So you can't really take it back in a real gameplay. Here's another situation that a lot of people get from the movies, right? This guy bets 500. I go, I will see your 500 and raise you 500. Well, I said, I will see your 500. That is the action. You have called if you say that, right? Same as if he throws out 500 and I say nothing and I go, nope. It's called a string bet. Anytime you add an action after your original action, it's a string bet. So keep that in mind. So when you want to do something, you have to do it all at once. Now I once saw a guy do this, and he string bet, and then someone called him on it, and he said, "Whoa, I'm sorry, I couldn't grab all of my chips at once." And everyone properly told him, well, if that's what you meant to do, just say all in. Just say it. Because if anything you say is also binding. So if you've got no fingertips and you can't reach all your chips at once, just say what you want to do and then you are binded to it. Just like if this guy said 500 and I say raise. I haven't told anyone how much I'm going to raise, but by me saying raise, I'm now binded to at least put in 1,000. I could put in 1,500, I could put in more, but I've said raise. So that is it. There's no like, is that your final answer? Or are you sure you want to do that? The only time that could ever happen is if the dealer mishears you. So if you say, he says 500, right? And I say 1,500, right? But the dealer didn't hear me say that. He says, I bet 2,000. I say, no, maybe another player can vouch for me. Yeah, okay. But again, if you're going to be subtle about your actions, it's going to come down to what the dealer interprets you doing. So you might as well just be clear about your action. So that covers the two most common betting mistakes players make, the one-chip rule and string betting. Another common mistake is not understanding that in the game of Hold'em, that 5 cards play, no matter what. So if there's a straight, and I've made a straight, now these cards don't make a straight, but whatever. If I've made a straight in my hand and the other player has made the same straight, like maybe with one of your cards fills out the straight, the 6th card doesn't play. It ends up being what's called a split pot. You tied and you cut whatever in the pot in half and you split it up. So it's always the best 5 cards play. The 6th card does not act as a kicker in any circumstances. So when you've got your cards in front of you, it is your job to protect them, but not hide them. So they have to be in the open, like this. They can be protected by a chip. They can be protected by, probably not the dealer button. That seems a little silly because you won't always have the dealer button. They can be protected by a little frog that you brought in and it sits on your thing. Oh, it's my lucky frog. Or you can just hold them like this. You can't hold them like this. You can't take them off the table. Everyone needs to see that you're in the hand. And the other thing is, if your cards are not protected, so if the dealer's here and this player is playing with his cards right here and this guy folds, right? And absent-mindedly, I go like this and I take this player's, the dealer takes this player's cards, the hand is folded. There's no recourse. You can't sue the casino. You can't do anything. You can't get the cards back. It's unfortunate. The dealer will not purposely do this to you, but it is your job to make sure that it never happens. It's the player's job to protect the cards from that happening. So that is one thing that can happen if you're not paying attention. Now, there's a couple things that you shouldn't be doing at the table either, and that is commenting on the hand in play, especially if you've already folded. So say 4 diamonds come up on the board. Don't be over in the corner going, "Who's got a diamond?" Yeah, any good player at the table will see 4 diamonds on the board. But I was in a hand a couple weeks ago. The guy, I had queen in my hand, really good hand, and then 4 diamonds came on the board and I had the last diamond, and he shoves all in, and I think there was only one card that could beat me, and I was already committed at that point because he had less money than me. So I said, well, I think I have to call. And I call, and he goes, "Oh, I didn't even see that there were 4 diamonds." So it's not appropriate to be commenting on the board. And here's the other thing a lot of people do. Card comes up, and he goes, "Oh, no! Oh, I folded the best hand." Yeah, the hand is still going on. That is considered pretty rude to do because you are giving information to other players that are still in the active hand. Once it's ended, go ahead and say, "Man, I had 7-2. I would have made the full house in this board." Now, a lot of times you'll have an urge to be like, "I'm folding this," and you'll show it to someone, right? "And I folded this. I can't believe." Oops. You wouldn't throw it face up in this example. You go, "I folded this." And you can't be showing one person your hand if you don't show everyone at the table. So if you show one person your hand, you have to turn it up to everyone so they all get the same information. And so the last thing I have is obviously don't say stuff that might throw the dealer off or even throw any other players off. So if the guy to your right is acting, don't be funny and go, "All in." Like, right, you're not in the hand or you've already called or something, you go, "All in." Like you're encouraging the guy to go all in. The dealer might misinterpret that as the guy said all in, and he goes, "Oh, he's all in." He's obviously not going to shove the thing into the middle, but to reduce confusion, don't say stuff that could confuse the dealer or take an action for another player, of course, obviously. And so that covers the basic poker etiquette and the rules that a lot of people miss. So if you keep these things in mind, you should be mostly okay when you get to the tables. I hope everyone liked the video. Bye, Coke. Bye.